thrilled to welcome to the stage Lisa Pahl, who is the creator of an innovative card game. She started with the End of Life deck, and now she's got a new product called the Dementia Deck. And we're going to play around with this innovative way to have open conversations about end of life or dementia. But before we dive in and kick off that discussion, Lisa, let's get to know you a little bit better. Tell us a little bit about your background and what led to you creating these unique products.
Thanks, Steve. I'm glad to be here again in the pro-aging community. Yeah, it's so nice to see all the participants coming in too. Dementia is a topic that a lot of people fear and find a hard time talking about. And so I applaud everyone for showing up and being willing to kind of sit with this topic. As you mentioned, this isn't the first product that I created. We started with the Death Deck and then the EOL Deck and now the Dementia Deck. And so, um, the purpose of all of those tools is to really just help people kind of have these conversations. And how that came to be is that I'm have worked in hospice almost 20 years, and both in the hospice and ER setting, which I also worked in for about 7 years. Um, I realized that people just weren't having these conversations. And so, what that leads to is a lot of chaos, a lot of confusion, a lot of second guessing, um, because families end up making medical decisions on our behalf. And when they don't know what the person would want, they often fill it in with their own, what they would want for themselves. And so if you have multiple kids, multiple ideas of what that looks like. So that's the impetus for creating the cards. A little bit more about me, though. I grew up in northern Michigan in a small farming community of 400 people, and I have now lived in Los Angeles for 23 years. So I like extremes, as small as it can get or as big as it can get. And like I mentioned, I've worked primarily in end of life care, but I've also worked as a medical social worker. I worked with survivors of torture in Florida in the early 2000s, and in rape crisis and domestic violence. So I um, all of those other um, populations I was
Experiences.
working with was before I found end of life. And that's where I really found my passion. And so now I'm just trying to help people prepare ahead of time because I've just seen so much heartache of families who struggle because they don't know. And, dementia is a disease that is just like you live so long with it often. And
Mhm.
so there's a lot of decisional moments that arise. And so that's what we're trying to talk about today is what you might want in those decisional moments.
I love it. And folks, these one of the best part about these discussions is that they're interactive. And one of the reasons that I was thrilled to have Lisa on and we play around with this deck is that what I'm hoping is that Lisa and I can kick off a conversation, but it can extend to all of you.
Mhm.
And there's a couple of things here that I want to note is that number one, talking about end of life is very difficult. Talking about dementia is very difficult. I think for a lot of us, myself included, until I really began to exercise the muscle, is that you basically have this idea that, oh, I don't want to talk about uh, death or dying or healthcare changes or dementia because then it could happen. And there's no correlation that talking about it brings it on, but not talking about it can create confusion. And the I applaud you for creating an easy to use card deck to have these conversations, because the other thing is your profession, a therapist, social worker, mental health counselor, whatever you want to call it, um, that is very difficult. It's very difficult for people to schedule an appointment for a therapist if they're not open to it. And so we're not going to get 100% of the population that's going to schedule time with the therapist to talk about their fears and their thoughts and things like that. But having a card deck and randomly having some conversations, we might be able to do it that way.
Yeah, and as a social worker, I'm all about tools and resources, and so um, you know, we created these decks to really help people have these conversations, and I also encourage people to use like everything in the media. I mean, there's so many entry points for these conversations. There's the new show, The Pit, that is just like every episode, there's about 15 conversations you can have with your family member. um, there's, interactions like this, the people who are here today. I hope you can blame this conversation and say, I attended this really surprisingly interesting talk today. I hope you think that, and then you say it made me think about a few things and I wanted
Mm-hmm.
to get your thoughts on it or share with you how I'm thinking about this. And so I think you brought up a really good point that we get so living in fear and uncomfortableness means that we avoid important conversations, and it does get easier. When I first started in hospice, I was really focused on symptom management and what was in front of me and the whole conversation about the fact that you're actually dying and what that means to you. It took time to really kind of build up that skill, and that was as a professional. And so,
Mm-hmm.
we do have to practice if
Yep.
we want to be able to talk about it.
Oh, I love it. All right. I think you prepared some PowerPoint slides to kind of guide us here at the beginning through this conversation. So feel free to pull those up, and we can kick this off. Um, and I know many of you have probably heard me say this while she's pulling up the slide deck, but the for me, talking about end of life, talking about dementia and things of that nature, it actually makes me reflect on how I want to live now while I'm alive and while I have capacity, because there's no guarantee. I don't know if or when that situation might change. Okay. Uh, you you getting it up there?
Yeah, sorry. It just let me try one more time.
Okay. It worked perfectly before we started.
That's
There we
that's
go.
that's
Yep.
my relationship with technology.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, we
Okay.
got it. All right. And there's the three card
Those are
decks that
the
you
yes.
have. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so before we dive into kind of the interactive portion here, I just want to highlight some of the things that Steve and I touched on a few of these things, but I just want to articulate why dementia is so hard to talk about for many people. The first, which is this is the one that people share with me the most, is that we're afraid of losing our independence and our abilities. And so the idea of it makes us uncomfortable, and so we just stop talking about it. We may have also had difficult memories of a family member who lived with dementia. My grandma lived with dementia for 9 years, and we were lucky enough to keep her at home, but that early portion of dementia, the poor woman was living in fear. Every airplane that went over her farmhouse, she thought were aliens that were going to come get her. And so, those memories do stick with us. And so I think that that contributes to this fear that we have of what it might look like if we are living with dementia. The third one is especially true in white American culture. There is a lot of fear of becoming a burden to our family members, and this idea that we don't want a faith that's going to require a lot of caregiving and resources. And then lastly, this is just kind of, I don't know about you all, but I sometimes have dreams that like I have dementia or it might be that I'm just immersed in this topic, but or that I have, you know, something is going on where I'm not thinking the way that I usually do. And those are scary thoughts. And so I just want to kind of put out there why these conversations are hard. And again, thanks for being here because you know all these things and yet you're still here immersed in the topic. Um, so these are more of the things that Steve and I talked about. Um, why are we doing this today? So one of the ways to help us reduce some of that fear and anxiety is to have a little bit more sense of autonomy and sense of control. So that if we talk about what we would want in different scenarios now, then we have a better likelihood that that's going to influence our future care. Um, the second one, this is true of all conversations about death and dying. I see it in hospice. I see it in the ER. I see it in my family life and with people that I know. When we can remember a conversation, we have more confidence to make decisions on their behalf. Advanced directives are really important. However, in my experience, it isn't that people are running to that advanced directive necessarily. They are recalling a conversation they had. My dad told me that if I put a feeding tube in him, he would haunt me forever. And and he shook his little finger, he was very stern about it. And so I remember that, and those are the conversations that we're trying to help facilitate so that people um, have an emotional memory that then prompts them in decision-making time. Uh, as I mentioned, different family members have different opinions. If you don't clearly state it to everyone, and have it in writing is another confirmation, there's more likelihood of conflict. And then, of course, increase the likelihood that your care preferences are respected. And this last one I feel like should be higher to the top because um, a lot of people are anxious and worried about the future regarding their health. And, you know, when we keep avoiding it, that fear and anxiety just grows. And when we actually start taking action and having conversations and doing some planning ahead, we can reduce that anxiety. What do you think, Steve? Do you think we covered them all?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm really glad you ran through those bullet points because it really does remind us that it's okay and it's healthy to be scared and to fear some of this, but it's a reminder that talking about it can be one of the best solutions. So,
Yeah.
anyways.
Yeah, and I think, um, prior to the creation of the Dementia Deck, um, there's a death deck question, which the death deck is our fun, lively game. That's kind of we got a little skull. This is our entry point game.
I like how you describe the death deck as your fun, lively game. I appreciate that. That's great.
It is fun. I mean, we use a lot of humor.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
and so it lightens the topic up. But one of the questions in there is what diagnosis do you fear the most? And I have been asking, we developed that in 2018, and I've been asking that question to people for, since 2018. And the choices are cancer, um, heart disease, or COPD, and then dementia, of any form of dementia. I think I've only had two people not answer dementia in
Hmm.
all. And that's people witnessing their family members with cancer, that's witnessing other, diseases. But it's it's the number one illness that people report kind of fearing.
Oh, absolutely. And I anecdotally, I have the same conversations. And what I like, Ken in chat says, the problem is one needs to have conversations before the diagnosis of dementia. A person with dementia can no longer make informed decisions. In fact, those who've never experienced dementia cannot make decisions based on the effects. And I like what you're saying, and I like what Ken's saying, because none of us know whether or not ourselves or our loved ones are going to have dementia. It's probably all of our number one fear. Uh, um, but the what I was gonna say about that is that because it's this, we also don't know how it's going to affect our decision making.
Mhm.
And anybody there are folks that have dementia that are peaceful, and you can have conversations with them and they're not aggressive. But then there are folks that the disease affects them in ways that make it more difficult to be a caregiver and have conversations. So if we
Yeah.
can have the conversations before our diagnosis, it can give those around us a clue on how we might want to be treated.
Yeah. And I think that to Ken's point, that's 100% what I'm saying is that we should have these conversations now while we can. Um, and while we don't know exactly what we're going to be experiencing in the course of the disease process, we do know in general what a lot of people experience. And so we can have conversations about what if, right?
Mhm.
And then, well, actually, another slide's going to cover this next part. So,
Okay, great.
okay.
I'm the same way. I end up talking about all the information on my slide decks, and then I'm like, oh, I just talked about that, and then I talk another 15 minutes about what I just talked about. So
Right. Okay, so this is the phrase that's the deeper why behind the dementia deck. So in working in hospice almost 20 years, we have a significant portion of individuals who are receiving hospice care that have end stage dementia. And, people have sometimes been taking care of their family member for 10, 15 years. And and this comment has been said to me countless times, some version of it. My dad wouldn't want to live like this. How do I keep it from happening to me? And, you know, we there's a lot of research out there for all the things we can try to be doing to reduce the likelihood of living with dementia. But we may not be able to stop that from happening, but what we can do is decide the care and treatment that we would want if we were living with dementia. And so, whether that means that their comfort measures come early on without aggressive treatment, it's all of those questions.
I love it.
Okay, so Compassion and Choices, we collaborated on the Dementia Deck. And so they have this amazing tool, which I um, have the link here that I'm going to put in the chat. This is basically a dementia-specific directive that you can attach to your advanced directive. And um, it goes basically what we did was I took inspiration from this tool to create a more engaging way to talk about it with the cards. So my encouragement to everyone is, after you have some conversations, you then complete your dementia values and priorities tool, and then attach it to your advanced directive, share it with your family. That's the full package preparation.
And I commend you on this. Okay, and for a couple of reasons is that one of the things that I've discovered most recently over the last few years, but over my entire career, is that people have conversations. People, it feels like people have more conversations about end of life and how they want to end. They would like their life to end with lawyers than they do their family members.
Mhm.
Meaning, like you talked about an advanced directive and a dementia directive, which are, I believe, two separate
Yes.
documents.
Mhm.
And and think about it, folks, is that so many times we do our estate planning, we go in and we talk to relative strangers. They ask us questions about how we view our end of life and all this type of stuff to create legal documents that get tucked away in some fireproof safe that nobody knows exists. And we haven't had these conversations with our loved ones and the people in our lives. And if you do it backwards, you're actually going to save a lot of money. Okay.
Mhm.
Because if you have a conversation about end of life, about dementia with your family and loved ones, and then you go into a lawyer's office, or then you fill out an advance directive form, you've already reviewed these ideas and concepts in your and your loved ones know about it. So this is what a great way to stimulate estate planning, basically.
Yeah, that is such a valid point. And I will tell you, I have a lot of estate attorney friends, and they aren't always the best person to begin kind of having these conversations with, in general, they are more focused on your finances and what's going to happen to that
Mm-hmm.
money, um, more in assets, more so. Some have a passion for these conversations, and I've met some people in that space, but um, having these conversations among your family first, and really putting some thought into it so that when you get to that documentation moment, you are much better equipped to do that legal portion of it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. No, I love it. All right.
Okay. Let's okay, we kind of covered all this. To Ken's point earlier, I have had people living with early dementia who have received a diagnosis and who have used the dementia deck with their family. Um, this isn't everyone with dementia. This is a select amount of a person who really does understand what's happening and want to talk about it now. The show This Is Us did a really great job of that. Rebecca got this dementia diagnosis and she immediately began talking to her family about it. And so, we still have an opportunity to have conversations, if we're capable of having conversations and really thinking these things through. Um, Now the legal aspect is a different piece, and that will be dependent on, a person's capacity at that time, whether they can do paperwork, but we can still be having conversations. Okay, so let's get into it. This is the fun part. Steve, you're gonna be put on the spot along with
Yeah.
me.
And folks, I honest to God, I have not reviewed these questions. I wanted it that way. And I know that you might think that this is sort of scripted, and I reviewed these questions. I'm going through the deck the same way that a user would be going through the deck with Lisa in her practice or in a family. So,
And
uh,
well, thanks for that, Steve. Yes, this was not previously rehearsed. So this first question is one that I really like to start with. And in any conversation that's challenging, or conversations that are around illness and death and dying, I recommend starting broader, right? Starting with questions either that aren't about you specifically or are kind of more positive, not about like directly your care and treatment preferences, but more quality of life. Those are easier entry points. We can kind of get warmed up to the conversation.
mhm.
So this first one is, what do you want to be able to keep doing? So if I'm living with dementia, please help me find ways to enjoy what I love. Two hobbies or activities that I want to always continue are blank and blank.
Wow. What a great thought-provoking question. And for me, it would be riding my bike.
Mm,
And I think probably riding my bike and um, uh, and maybe swimming.
mm,
I
mhm,
mean, I like swimming laps, and I mean it's a healthy activity,
mhm,
and but I really like riding my bike. Now, folks, you might be say it's like, or let's say that my son is doing this with me. It's like, but Dad, that's dangerous. If you were out, if you had dementia and you're riding your bike, there's a I have an indoor cycling app that's called Zwift that really makes it feel like and I'm riding with thousands of people all over the world on these various courses. And so I think that would be achievable. And
mhm,
if I had a physical disability that
mhm,
enabled me not to be able to ride my bike or to do uh to go swimming, I would probably say engaging in some form of art. I do
mhm.
like creating art, mosaic,
Oh, cool.
sketching, painting. I don't do it enough, but that is one of the things that if I had dementia that I would really look forward to, because here's when I visit memory care communities,
Mhm.
they sometimes give me, I sometimes feel like I'm in an art colony, because it's a bunch of people living without filters. And that's what I feel that we need to, that's how, when we're creating art, that we should live without filters, is that not be afraid to express ourselves, whether it be musically, verbally, or
Mhm.
through painting. So long-winded answer, but that's how I would answer this question.
I love it.
And you know what? Hey, folks, if you want to play along, I'd be curious in the audience. Use chat. And
Yeah.
what would you love to do if you had dementia and you'd want your loved ones to know that? I'm curious. Um, and
Yeah.
and this is really important now that you think about it. Like,
Mhm.
sorry, I know I'm monopolizing the conversation,
No.
but I basically have at least two conversations a week with a family member who's caring for a loved one with dementia, and there was there was never any kind of conversation. They're just trying to figure out what can give my husband purpose. We never dreamed that this would happen, and so now I'm just throwing puzzles and coloring books and all of these things. But a conversation like this, it's like, Dad, remember you wanted to ride bikes, or actually you wouldn't say remember, you'd say, Dad, I got your bike all set up for you here.
Right. Right.
So
Yes.
okay,
So
playing the piano, reading, dancing, soccer, and reading books. exercise and participating in family activities,
Mhm.
music. This is great, y'all. And
Those are those are great ones. And like so many things are adaptable. So, for me, reading is one of mine as well. I am part of a book club. We meet tonight. It's 22 years strong. And so it's really important to me to be able to keep reading. Um, and so, there's audiobooks. There's people reading to you. When we lose the capability to read on our own, there are other ways to do it. And for me, even if, you know, as being a reader or as being someone who loves music, you know, um, th those are the muscle memory that we have. And so, you know, um, most of the time people can find their way through, adapting. And my other one is puzzles. I have a puzzle always going on. And it is the most soothing thing in my life. I feel like, you know, it's something that you can solve, whereas most things in the world feel unsolvable at the moment. And so I really like the puzzle. And there's some great dementia puzzles that I hope, you know, my
now,
family would find
out
for
of
me.
curiosity, you've piqued my interest, Lisa. Jigsaw puzzles or different types of puzzles?
Jigsaw,
Oh,
a
okay,
thousand
cool.
to 2,000. Yep.
Holy cow, you're hardcore.
I have a table in my house and there's always a puzzle
Oh, that's
that I'm
cool.
working on. So I'm practicing being older because I used to only be about working out. And I had some health problems myself and realized that my coping strategies were all active. And that's when I
Yeah.
started puzzling. Mhm.
And this is hopefully this conversation that we're having is very therapeutic for everybody. But I when I answered that question about what I'd like to do in being cycling and swimming, I hesitated there because one of the things that I try to counsel people on having a purpose is there are millions of things that we can do in this world to find purpose. What ends up happening is we have this small basket. And I remember the first time that this was brought to my attention, a guy came into my office and he's like, "Oh, my life's over. I threw my back out. I can't play golf anymore."
Mhm.
And I sort of said to him, I said, there's a million other things you can do. You just think that golf is the only thing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so expanding our horizons while we have all of our abilities is also a great thing. It's like, so every year I try to add something that I haven't done to my menu, and I may reference it later in life.
Yeah. Yeah. I I love that. I think that um it's just I love everyone's answers. I have to tell you, I am there's so many great ideas here. And Diane just mentioned I love cooking, especially baking. I think that, there's a lot of great ways to continue cooking, again, with adapting with safety in place. I think the other piece about this that Steve, you brought up safety, and I know safety is really important, but I do believe that people have the right to to talk about, what risks they're willing to take. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Walking is one of my activities too. So walking, puzzles, books. If I I would rather take the risk to keep walking longer. Um, I know that might freak out my family. I know that there's a lot of risk with falls. Um, but this conversation is about quality of life and what makes life, as you said, Steve, purposeful, meaningful, worth living. And so I do think that there are um, there are ways to kind of talk about this that might give people, so that let's say I'm now um, needing a caregiver at home. The caregiver is very worried about taking me out for walks, but I have been talking to my family about how this is really important to me. This is really a value to me. Help me figure out, let's figure out how I can keep doing that as long as possible. Now, eventually I won't be able to, but as long as possible,
Well,
right?
but being in a wheelchair or
Hmm.
another mobility device and going outside is still walking
Yeah,
essentially.
right.
There's always a way, well, not always a way, but yeah, it's redefining the definition. And yeah, I agree. Like, as I think I think Diane's question about I like cooking and baking, any ideas, is that it's uh there are so many safety products now uh, that we can utilize, as
Mhm.
well as just cooking and baking with a friend or a loved one.
Yeah.
Is that this is going to be a new ritual that we're going to do, Mom, and go through that. But holy cow, like, I am so glad that we're having this, because think about what we're talking about here, folks. This is great. Your first question is amazing. And oh, okay. And is this the next question?
This is the next question. So, this is also one that airs on the, quality of life kind of question. And so, the best way to offer me comfort when living with dementia is prayer, scriptures, or other spiritual support, B, massage and aromatherapy, C, art, music, singing, anything that's creative. D is on the table, which is your own answer. So I'm curious what other people put your answer in the chat, and then how about you, Steve? Wait,
Well,
let me guess. Are you C?
yeah, I think that would be, but actually, these are things that this is a great reminder that I should be enjoying art, music, singing uh more now. Like, and this is why I like talking about end of life, is that I'm alive now. Why am I not maximizing my enjoyment of art, music, singing, and creativity now, uh, while I have capacities? And then, if in the future that changes, I want to make sure that the people around me know that that's something that I'd like to continue.
Mhm.
Um,
I love that. That's so
Now, I got a
true.
great story. Last night, I was a guest at a dementia caregiver support group,
Mm.
and we were and I don't think she's on this call, but Sonia Gal runs Parkinson's support groups, and she always opens her support groups with "What's something great that happened today?"
Mm.
Instead of, you go to a support group and it's easy to just get into a more negative dialogue. And so I tried that with this support group last night, and there's a woman who's caring for her husband with dementia, and um, she asked him to give her a foot massage. She had he said, how was your day? It's like, I had a really rough day. Would you be willing to give me a foot massage? I think that's how the dialogue went. And it worked out beautifully for both of them. He was very eager to help his wife, who he
Yeah.
recognized has been really helping him. And this gave him purpose. And so often, I think, when we think about our loved ones with dementia, we don't think about enlisting them in a job, or
Yeah.
and that's something that, if we can communicate that in advance, is that and that's something for me. I like helping people. So,
Yeah.
if I get dementia, try to put me in a role where I can keep on helping people, because that gives me purpose. But looking at B on your list there, it's possible that your caregiver, that the person you're caring for, could also be providing massage to you if that's important, and vice versa.
Mm, I love that story. I think that it's a quality of life, and it's also um a great tip in working with people with dementia is that instead of directing people to do something, you invite them to help you. Um, and most people want to be helpful and they really want to feel useful. That's one of the things that hospice patients will tell me all the time. And I think one of the reasons that we fear a disease and disease progression is we want to be useful, helpful, productive people, right? And so finding ways to continue that is important. Okay, let's get to another one. Someone I know lived with dementia. Based on that, if I am diagnosed, I want my family to approach my situation in a similar way. I ask that my family makes different decisions about my care, or C, a little bit of both, a caregiver cocktail.
Hmm.
What do you
So,
think?
well, what I like about this card is that if we were doing this like in a setting with our loved one, we would talk about how another person was cared for with dementia.
Mhm.
So that would be part of the dialogue with this card, which I really like, um, because it might be that we pick somebody that is in a memory care community, or that we pick somebody that is being cared for at home, and what I would say, I'm going to give a shout out to somebody who's become a really good friend of mine, Sam Simon, who wrote and performs the play Dementia Man. Sam
Mm.
has a dementia diagnosis. His wife is his primary caregiver, but Sam has basically embraced his diagnosis by being an advocate to show people that you can live with dementia, and his family supports him in that. And I'd like to think that I could do the same thing or something similar. But very important, what you realize is that just because I want to be out there and with a diagnosis, sort of sharing my story with others, my family might not, it might be something that at
Mhm.
first glance is embarrassing to them, or something that that they're not comfortable and they don't support me that much in it. But giving them advance notice that, hey, if I have a diagnosis with cancer, dementia, or anything, I want to be an advocate and I want to share my story. uh letting people around me know in advance would be important.
Yeah. I put the link in the chat for Dementia Man. Um, I and Steve, knowing you and these incredible webinars you keep putting on, of course that, you would want to continue that. And I've been seeing more webinars featuring people living with dementia as well,
Mhm.
and I've been attending those, and it's such a fantastic resource to really have a better understanding of people's personal experiences. And yes, okay, we have a little more time here. Um, what brings us comfort when we think about life with dementia? Research and science. There's always hope for new treatment options. B, having conversations and putting plans in place. Or C, nothing really helps. I don't want to think about it.
Yeah.
Again, we can all we can answer D, all of the above, E, a different
Hmm.
answer. But we'd love for people to put their answers in the chat. And what do you think, Steve? What
Well,
brings you
yeah,
comfort?
I guess I could be a blend of A and B, but really leaning on B on this one. That research and the scientific aspects of uh, not just dementia, but all medical conditions is a mystery to me. I know it's very important, but uh, again, it's just like getting a diagnosis. It's a crystal ball. I don't know if there's going to be a cure when me and my loved ones have this diagnosis. So all I can do to control the situation is have conversations and put some kind of plan in place. And quite frankly, folks, like just so you know, like I have never verbalized the two things that I would want people in my life to help me continue if I had dementia until just today. Um, Thanks to these cards. Like, and that's planning right there. That's planning. Now I just got to make sure to share it with some folks that are going to be around me if I have dementia. And but I'll make sure to do that this weekend.
Yeah, yeah, that's the key. I like Ken's response here. A implies a hopelessness, whereas B shows control. Or and I can understand that take on that. You know, A is more um abstract. It's someone else is doing the research, and so we don't have control over that. B, we have control over. And so and of course that's why we're here today. So now we get into some of the um, more sensitive questions. Those first ones were kind of a little bit more about quality of life in a lot of ways. Um, and this question is kind of getting into some of the moments that arise when people are living with dementia. So, and one of the reasons that we included this question is because um, again, working in hospice for so long, the personal care piece of this is such a big issue for people. And when I say issue, I just mean it's something that people have a lot of feelings about. And so, again, I believe in talking about things makes the power of them lessen. So the idea of needing help with bathing and personal care, A, is dehumanizing and upsetting to me. B, feels manageable if done by a professional. Or C, no big deal. Everyone needs help at some point. And I just want to pause and say, I understand that a lot, the answers sometimes have multiple pieces to them. And so you might say, yes, but this. And it's purposeful. We are just trying to give people options of what they might align with. But it doesn't matter to me if you say B, but if done by my family, or if you just say B. The point is that you're talking about it. And we know that multiple choice questions are easier than essay questions. And so that's kind of the rationale for giving the options. So, what do you think, Steve?
Well, this I love how we've progressed into a card like this because this is a really tough one. And I think I talk on this platform all the time that the phrase that I hear more often than not is, "Oh, I'm not ready for anything like that." And this card falls into that category is that even for myself is this progressive, oh yeah, I want to be prepared for end of life and dementia. When I start thinking about needing help with bathing and personal care, it's I mean, it's very scary. It's
Yeah.
just like, wow, who is going to be, performing this intimate role, and how guilty I'm going to feel that they are helping me with this. But it's definitely a, like, that's goes without saying. But ultimately, if I can live a purposeful life and there are is somebody that's being either compensated, or it feels like I've my relationship is close enough that they really want to help me with this. I would be down for that. But now this is an area where I think we can kind of get into planning on a little bit of a deeper level, in that what I'd also like my loved ones to do is to utilize technology and assistive devices to the point where I might be able to continue to perform some of these hygiene tasks on
Mhm.
my own, without their assistance. Okay, so whether it be utilizing a bidet, or something in the shower that enables me to wash and bathe myself, that would be wonderful.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, this one, you know, it it's rare that I have someone say it's no big deal. Again, I will say culturally, there are, live in Los Angeles and have a um, wide Hispanic population that I serve. And I will say that some of my Hispanic families do feel like no big deal. I'm not saying that as that's, across the board, but there are differences culturally in expectations and caregiving and that sort of thing. But what again, talking about this and being able to have a conversation with your family member, um, you know, now I've been talking to my son since he was 10 about the fact that you're going to change my diapers, right? And he's 17 now, and so far he still says no. But I'm planting seeds now. Um, but I think again, we want to just talk about that this is a pretty big deal for most people and it's uncomfortable to think about. Um, and when we can just kind of broach topics with our family members about, okay, I'm doing my planning for the future, and some of that planning involves planning for the potential that I might be living with dementia, and this is something that is continues to make me feel uncomfortable. And what I will say is, you know, I would want to use my resources, my financial resources, as long as possible so that you aren't put in that role. But, and so we can just have conversations about the topic and begin really kind of reducing this fear that we all have. We're not going to get rid of it, but talking about it and looking at different options for how we might get help in that area can definitely help us um, feel more of a sense of control for the future. So, if you were diagnosed with, actually, I'm gonna move on to this one since we got time for this last one. If it's time for care in a facility, the most important thing to consider is A, cost. Don't burn through all my savings if possible. B, size. Keep it small. I like personalized attention. Or C, activities. I want to stay active and connected with others. Um, Steve, I know you had mentioned your experience within some of the assisted living facilities.
Mm-hmm.
And so what would your take be on
Okay. Yeah. So this is really one of those things that I'm try to be very open-minded
Mhm,
on this topic, is
mhm,
that the one thing that I want to communicate to the people around me is that that I'm open to leaving the home if the home is not, if the current place that I'm living is not safe and accessible.
mhm,
And so I would say that that it's kind of all three of these. we obviously have to pay attention to cost, and you know, and also the other thing, I'm a huge fan of adult daycare. Is
Mhm,
that the step before this would be,
mhm,
if I have dementia and and I'm not being engaged and it's difficult for the people caring for me, by all means, let's find a great adult daycare and get me involved there.
mhm.
And that can help with the cost element. And then, uh, absolutely. And I'm a fan of keeping it small, no matter what we're talking about, whether it's dementia or, senior living in general. So, and, yeah, and I want to stay active and purposeful. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. We're done at one, right?
Yeah, we can go a little bit longer if I don't have a hard stop, and this is really fun and therapeutic for me. So we could keep on going if you wanted to.
Okay. Phyllis, I like that you ranked them. I think that's a good way to answer that question. And going back to Steve's point, um, when I'm talking to people about planning for the future, I always talk about never make promises. It Don't make promises. People will say, I promised my dad um, I would never put him in a facility, and now here we are. And the guilt that comes with that is really hard. So um yeah, I just want to kind of put that out there, being open and saying, this is what's most important to me. This is my first choice. This is my second choice. This is my third choice. So that people don't have that sense of guilt later, because we don't know what's going to happen. I could have every intention of moving my mom in with me, having a caregiver here, taking care of her. And then I end up with a diagnosis of cancer. And so I can no longer take care of her because I'm in treatment myself, right? So, um, okay. Steve, do you have the link to put back in the chat? Someone had asked.
Oh, to get the discounted
Yeah,
card deck? Yeah.
yeah.
I will drop that in there. And
Okay.
it'll also be on the recording link. And the other thing, Lisa, somebody requested the PowerPoint. So if you can email that to me, I'll put a link to that as well. This
Okay.
is a great PowerPoint that you could get like your staff talking about this, or you could do a Zoom meeting with your family.
Mhm. Um, okay, I see Phyllis has answered this one already. And so has Sibo. Thank you, everyone who needs to jump off. Thank you for being here. Greatly appreciate it. We'll just go through a couple more questions just to
Cool.
finish or have more of the conversation. Again, this question, it's similar to um, it's maybe not as personal as the personal care, but it still creates a lot of emotions.
Hmm.
So, you know, most people living with dementia lose the ability to safely swallow. And so this is a question that many people, families struggle with. Um, give me a feeding tube. I want to live as long as possible. Now, I will do a caveat that actually research shows that you don't actually live longer with a feeding tube, but it can feel like, um, anyway, I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Yeah.
B, that's my body's way of letting go, listen to it. Or C, it depends on how I'm doing otherwise.
And I think, like Charlene, my my and Eileen, B, that's my body's way of letting go. Listen to that. The asterisk here is that I am cognitively uh impaired, okay, and I am unable to safely swallow and drink food. If I had my cognitive function, but I had an accident where I could not swallow or take nourishment, but I can still think and talk and or not even talk, if I can still think and enjoy puzzles and things of that nature, then I could see using a feeding tube. But I'm probably, when we're talking about, I've already got a dementia diagnosis, I'd probably be in the B camp as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Me too. And I think the C answer does come into play sometimes. Um I think that, but most of the time we know that the progression is, again, most of the time, if we're talking about Alzheimer's, if we're talking about FTD, if we're talking about the most common dementias, then it's at the end stage that we lose that ability. So in my work in hospice, I feel aligned greatly with B in those situations. Okay, let's end on a fun one. And you know, the wording of this is very specific because I got some, I sent these questions out to some dementia professionals, and while they really liked the answer of like what kind of TV programs might kind of bring comfort and entertainment, they wanted it to be clear that it wasn't just TV being used and people propped up in front of them. And so that's why the question is kind of worded in this way. If I'm having
Mm-hmm.
trouble managing the remote and finding my favorite TV show, um, put on A, feel good nature programs, give me some baby animals, B, musical reality programs like Dancing with the Stars, C, upbeat classic sitcoms like The Golden Girls.
Wow. Uh, what a great card, Lisa. Because and holy cow, like I never thought about this until you you presented this card, in that when we go visit our loved ones in care settings, uh, inevitably there's a TV on, and and obviously if somebody can't work the remote, we just park them in front of the TV and just, hey, it doesn't matter what's on there. They've got dementia. They can just,
Mhm.
they're just gonna sit there and watch and watch it. And wouldn't it be amazing if we actually had some information in advance of this diagnosis on what they'd like to watch? Unbelievable. Um, and now that I'm kind of like thinking about it, I'm thinking about the huge challenge. The way I watch TV when I'm by myself, I am constantly turning the channel. Like it's
Mhm.
short attention span type
Mhm.
stuff, where a commercial comes on and I just flip to see if there's something else that might keep me occupied. And I tend to dance around the stations, and I'd really have to give this more thought, in that if I left to my own devices, if somebody parked me in front of a TV and I couldn't flip the channels and things like that, what would keep me occupied?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Well, June and I are the same. Some Golden Girls. Um, for me, the classics, Friends, Seinfeld, those
Oh,
are
The Office. I
The
like watching
Office.
The Office. I can
Yeah.
watch it in Parks and Rec. And actually, okay, I got a little insight for my loved ones. And this drives me crazy about TV today. um, there is so much on TV about killing and serial killers and murder, and I find it ironic because we it's so difficult for us to talk about death, yet obviously the entire population is obsessed with killing and serial killers and murders. And I would prefer to be parked in front of TV watching comedies and sitcoms.
Yeah. You know, my I agree.
Old time game shows. That would be
I
fun too. Yeah.
I do love baby animals. I can tell that I'm turning 50 this year because suddenly squirrels are really entertaining. And so are the birds coming into my yard. Um, so yeah, I think for me it's the sitcoms and the baby animals. Oh, I was gonna say one last thing on the TV watching. Oh, my pet peeve is when I go into either someone's home and they have a caregiver, or a six-pack home, a board and care, one of the smaller, and everybody has a phone or a TV in the room, and the news is on, and the news, last year. It's been a little over a year ago, we had these massive fires in LA. And this gentleman that I was seeing who had he actually had a late effect CVA. He had a massive stroke and he had a lot of cognitive impairments. And they had the news on for him in his room constantly. And this poor man was so convinced. I mean, it was a scary moment with the fires, and they're just constantly on. And I was talking to the care providers and and they said, "Oh, well, um, we just keep it on channel 7 or something all the time." And I said, "Well, anyway, I think." Having these conversations, being advocates for your family members and saying, no, this is what they liked. Now, granted, some people watch the news religiously, um, and if they want to continue that or don't seem upset by that, that's one thing. But I think we can find more pleasant things. Okay, I decided we should do one last one, and Steve. And this one is for everyone. It's especially for the ladies. Um, Keeping up my appearance, hair, nails, etc., is A, not important. Just keep me clean and comfortable. B is very important to my sense of self. And C, comfort is first, but I can still be fabulous, darling. Um,
um, yeah, I uh I think one thing that I've discovered, this would be very important to me. And here's kind of uh my thought on this one is because I've been to so many different care homes and I visited people in their own homes, and and especially if you don't have full capacity, if it's difficult for me to perform hygiene, or if I am cognitively impaired, the fact is that people that are properly groomed are more appealing to be around, and I would want to be around other people, and and so I'd want somebody to try to really keep up with my hygiene, and that would be important.
mhm, mhm. Yeah, I I appreciate your comment because I think it also speaks to the dignity that
Mm-hmm.
we have. Uh, of course, being clean and comfortable um, is most important, um, and it's also there are other important aspects that come with the dignity of having an appearance kind of consistent. You know, um, I love having my nails done, and if I think that continuing to do that if it's possible, if it's feasible, bring someone in. Um, I think that we can continue to have a sense of who we are, and really have that dignity. And again, for some people, maybe it's not as important. I had a gentleman who was a salesman, and he traveled all over, and he lived to be like 95. And this gentleman, he had living caregivers. They put him in a suit every day, um, until he got to be bedbound, and then it became too difficult. But until that point, he was dressed. He had a top hat on. And every day he first was sitting at the table, then he had to be, in the recliner. But that was important to him. That was important to his family. And it sure made my day, like walking in to see him all dressed in his suit with his little top hat on. It was a family that really honored his wishes. So the link, yes, I'm gonna stop sharing real quick, bring us back to this, and then I can get to my oops, not that.
All right. Well, a lot of people hung on for an hour and 15 minutes. Oh, here, I'm gonna
I just put it
repost.
in. I
Okay.
just put it in. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. We need it to go to everyone. There we go. Okay.
Oh.
Sorry.
Mhm.
Um, but folks, I'll have a link to the card deck. Lisa, is it okay? Can you send me a PDF of the PowerPoint?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, cool. And there was a couple of requests for that, and I think it's a good. But folks, hey, look, it's a good um, promo for the cards, and hopefully some of you will order the cards, because this really illustrates how wonderful. I'm blown away. Actually, I'm really glad we went through this demo like this. I really got a lot out of this today.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you said you didn't want to know the questions ahead of time, because I think it
Yeah.
it really made for a more rich conversation. And just speaking to the slides and to, having these conversations, this is my favorite topic. I would love if anyone wants me to come to their group and we can do this interactive and lead that together. I'm happy to do that. So I'm going to put to everyone here. This is my email
Oh,
address.
good. I was going to drop it in there, but
Okay,
I'm glad
yep,
that you're. No, I'm glad you're doing it,
there you go.
Lisa. There.
So yeah, if you have questions, if you want to talk some more about these topics, anything, just reach out to me. And thank you everyone for your participation, and especially you, Steve. Thank you for being vulnerable, participating, and it was a lot of fun.
Oh, this was a great discussion today. All right, folks. We'll see you at the next one. But thanks a lot. And if you're in the Washington area, it's mind blowing. I've been looking out my window at this sideways snow for the last couple of hours. It's crazy. Um, they're asking, is there a discount code when
Oh,
you
this
just?
is the direct link that'll give you 20% off.
Okay, got it. So when you click on
So
that
when you
link,
click on that link,
you'll
it takes
automatically get a
you,
discount.
you'll have 20% off your order of
Okay.
any of the products.
And hey, folks, if you end up ordering these cards and using them, feel free to reach out to me, because it would be fun to do a follow up discussion or an article on how these
Mhm.
work for you based on our conversation today.
Yeah,
So,
for
all
sure.
right.